powered by Riverside FM.
What's the worst experience you have had in a lift? Or to broaden it out, what's the most memorable experience you've had? Mine is actually only as a bystander, but it still sticks in my mind. Roughly 15 years ago, I was working for a small consultancy company with our offices on the third floor of a building. The company worked across a range of sectors, and that day we all knew that some visitors from a Tokyo-based energy company were coming to meet with the consultancy's energy division. The first I knew of the incident was in the middle of the morning. A rumor began to spread around the office. The news was that the visitors had arrived but hadn't been able to make it to reception as they were stuck in the lift. Stuck in our fairly nondescript, average-sized, three-floor travelling lift. Some time passed, and a number of us gathered round to see what was happening, some of us peering across the atrium, others hanging around near the exit from the lift. Still, the lift was malfunctioning, and they were unable to be freed. Not a good impression on some potential clients that we wanted to impress. Ultimately, this led to the fire brigade being called, and they attended and soon rapidly resolved it and freed the visitors. Although to everyone's watching astonishment, at this point, out of the lift, in turn, stepped no less than 10 smartly dressed Japanese businessmen. Quite how they'd managed to all get in, no one could fathom. One person in the lift would be ideal. 2 people, perfectly acceptable. You can stand side by side and maybe share some small talk in the 20 seconds between floors. 4 people, manageable, but slightly awkward, especially in that moment about deciding which way to face. Presumably you face the door with your back to those behind you. 6 people, well, you've sort of tipped over here. At least half of those people will be wondering why the others didn't wait outside or take the stairs. You're getting close to being sardines in a nightclub. But 10 people, well, the mind boggles. No doubt, this reckless overcrowding had been part of the problem with the lift. But ultimately, no harm was done, and actually, on the plus side, and with apologies for sadly perpetuating stereotypes, the visitors were actually delighted at the whole incident. They seized upon it as an opportunity to take multiple photographs of themselves with the firemen, and indeed the whole incident. So all was well that ended well. Personally, I have never been in anything quite as dramatic as that incident, although I have had experience in lifts which have been somewhat unsettling. For example, I've been in lifts which have stopped suddenly or jolted, or perhaps more seriously, lifts which have stopped but have not been fully aligned between the lift floor and the building floor, such that on exiting, I have had to step, or indeed in one case clamber out of the lift to get out. These types of incidents, particularly those where the lift jolts unexpectedly or the door is stuck, are the most common types of problems experienced with lifts. Although I'm also aware of one freak situation where a person who dropped their phone at the peak of unluckiness saw it disappear down the small gap between the lift car and the building floor, disappearing into the lift shaft never to be seen again. Overall, regular lift usage often comes with a number of frustrations and problems. I'm sure some of you listening who live in apartment blocks or regularly use offices will have experienced lifts that have been out of service, often for a long period of time. Repairs for these types of failures can be slow to happen and are often very expensive. One particular example I'm aware of are the lifts serving the Greenwich Foot Tunnel in London. They have been out of service for many months, possibly years now. This is an inconvenience for some users, but it's also created a hazard. Users of Lime bikes, which are hired electric bikes, increasingly popular in London, have been taking their bikes down into the tunnel. These bikes are very heavy. Having got into the tunnel down the 8 flights of steps, they have reached the other side and realised there is no lift to take them up again, and the effort of lugging the bike up the stairs is proven too much for them. As such, there is now a significant pile-up verging on blocking the foot tunnel at both ends. It's noticeable that some lifts appear to face less problems than others, particularly those in higher rise blocks or large skyscrapers. In those cases, the option of using the stairs is really not viable. Accordingly, skyscrapers do generally have higher quality and better maintained lifts compared to those in lower buildings. The lifts are often newer and made of higher quality components and motors, and have on-site maintenance teams to facilitate this. As such, this can help to avoid some of those problems. So far, I've just identified problems with lifts which cause inconvenience, but there are some situations where freak accidents occur, including injuries and even fatalities. These are typically associated with lift falls or door entrapments. The only statistics I could find readily available were from the US, but there they tell you that around 17,000 people in the US are injured every year, and the risk of being in a fatal elevator accident is about 1 in 10 million rides. When I read this, I found it to be scarcely believable. It sounds much worse than I expected. Consider that for a lift user who maybe uses a lift, let's say 6 times a day for the sake of argument, which would equate to 2,000 rides in a year, that would mean that 1 in 5,000 lift users are killed every year. Surely not true, and evidence of misuse of statistics. But even if this is remotely true, it does suggest to me one thing. Next time, use the stairs.